On a quiet university campus, students bustled between classes, oblivious to the dark secret lurking in their midst. But when Sarah Miller, a bright young woman, went missing one cold October evening, no one could have predicted the horrifying truth that would soon be uncovered. The case would shake the campus to its core and reveal that the killer might have been closer than anyone imagined. It was a typical fall evening at Ridgewood University. Sarah Miller, a bright psychology student, sat alone in the library, her face buried in textbooks. She had been stressed for days, preparing for midterms. As the clock struck midnight, she packed up her things and texted her roommate that she'd be back soon. But she never made it. Hours passed. Sarah's phone went to voicemail, and when her roommate Chloe went to check, Sarah's bed was empty. Panic quickly spread. Friends and campus security searched the library footage, but it revealed nothing. No sign of Sarah. She had simply vanished into the night. As the hours turned to days, the campus grew colder. The familiar faces of students now seemed shrouded in fear. Was someone watching them too? Who could have taken Sarah? Nobody knew. 5 days later, hope was nearly gone. That's when a group of students on a hiking trip found Sarah's jacket, covered in blood, half buried beneath the leaves near the edge of campus. It was unmistakable. Her name was stitched inside. The students froze, paralyzed by the discovery. They called the police, who soon arrived and began combing the nearby woods. As they followed a faint blood trail deeper into the trees, more of Sarah's belongings were found: her broken glasses, a torn notebook, but no sign of Sarah. The realization was sinking in. Sarah had been hurt, maybe worse. Someone had left her there, or worse, something far more sinister had happened. The campus was now gripped with terror. Whoever had done this was still out there, and Sarah was gone. As the days without answers dragged on, the campus grew tense. The search for Sarah had yielded little, and the authorities seemed to hit a wall. That was until an anonymous tip came in, one that would send the investigation in a shocking new direction. The note was simple: "The killer is among you." It was slipped under the door of the campus police station, a chilling message that sent shivers down the spine of everyone involved. The message suggested that the killer wasn't some stranger from the outside. The terror was much closer to home. Could one of the students, a classmate, or even a friend, have been responsible? The idea seemed almost impossible, but the police had no choice but to consider it. The authorities began combing through every available piece of information, from campus security footage to witness testimonies. The footage from the night Sarah disappeared had been reviewed again, and this time something stood out. A figure in a hoodie was seen lingering near the library just after Sarah left. The person didn't seem to belong to any group on campus, and there was something unsettling about their movements. The footage was grainy, making it difficult to identify them, but the strange figure was enough to raise suspicion. Investigators dug deeper, reaching out to students who might have seen something unusual. When they started looking into the individuals who had been on campus frequently late at night, one name kept coming up: Daniel Adams. He was a student who had recently dropped out of Sarah's psychology class. His behavior had always been strange: quiet, reclusive, often found wandering the library after hours. He was known to avoid socializing, keeping to himself, and his sudden absence from class raised red flags. Daniel had never been a part of Sarah's circle of friends, but his obsession with psychology was well known. Some students recalled seeing him staring at Sarah from across the room during lectures, but no one thought much of it at the time. He was simply another quiet student. But now, things were beginning to seem different. Were these innocent quirks part of something darker? When the police brought Daniel in for questioning, he acted nervous, avoiding eye contact, his responses short and guarded. His demeanor raised further suspicions, but there was no concrete evidence to connect him to Sarah's disappearance. So, the investigation continued. But the more they looked into Daniel's background, the more unsettling details emerged. The breakthrough came when police searched Daniel's dorm room. What they found was horrifying, something that no one had expected: a wall covered with photographs of Sarah. Every moment of her day, every move she made, was meticulously documented in grainy pictures taken without her knowledge. It wasn't just a few photos. It was a collection, hundreds of them. As the authorities dug deeper, they discovered a hidden journal. It was Daniel's, filled with disturbing entries about Sarah. At first, the words seemed harmless, just typical ramblings about school, life, and loneliness. But as they flipped through the pages, the obsession became clear. There were detailed descriptions of Sarah's habits, her routines, the places she visited on campus. And, more chillingly, Daniel's growing belief that she was destined for something dark, something he had to save her from. The journal detailed his twisted thoughts about Sarah's life. Daniel had convinced himself that she was on a path to destruction, that her future was doomed by the pressures of life. In his mind, he was protecting her, saving her from a cruel world. But this protection was far from innocent. He had begun to stalk Sarah, following her every step, even taking photos of her when she wasn't looking. He believed he was the only one who truly understood her. He even described how he would rescue her by taking control of her fate. In a hidden compartment under his bed, they found the unthinkable, a blood-stained knife, carefully wrapped in cloth. It was the same knife that had been used to harm Sarah. The chilling reality began to set in. Daniel had planned it all. He had watched her, stalked her, and finally attacked her, believing that her death would somehow save her from the world. When confronted with the evidence, Daniel was silent. His mind had already justified his actions in ways that were too twisted to understand. The arrest was inevitable, and the trial that followed revealed the full extent of his delusions. His obsession with Sarah wasn't just a strange crush, it was a dark, dangerous fixation that had led him to murder. The truth was almost too terrifying to comprehend. A student once viewed as a quiet, harmless figure had turned out to be the campus killer. The haunting question remained: what else had Daniel been capable of? The arrest of Daniel Adams sent shockwaves through Ridgewood University. What had once been a peaceful campus now felt like a haunting reminder of the darkness that can exist just beneath the surface. Students, once oblivious to the danger, found themselves questioning the people around them. Daniel had been a ghost on campus, someone who seemed unremarkable. His strange behavior and solitary nature had gone unnoticed by many until now. No one could believe that someone from their own community was capable of such an atrocity. As the trial began, the full extent of Daniel's obsession with Sarah came to light. In court, the prosecution painted a chilling picture of a young man who had slowly descended into madness. The journals, the photographs, the blood-stained knife, every detail revealed a mind fixated on the idea of saving Sarah. But in reality, he had taken her life, believing that death would somehow release her from the world he thought was corrupting her. During the trial, Daniel sat silently, his eyes vacant, his face devoid of any emotion. His defense team argued that he was mentally unstable, that his delusions had clouded his judgment. But it was clear to everyone involved that this was no mere act of insanity. This was the calculated work of someone who believed their actions were justified, someone who had spent months, if not years, plotting the final, horrific act. Sarah's family, devastated by the loss, sat in the courtroom, struggling to understand how their daughter could be taken so violently. Her mother, holding back tears, spoke to the press after the trial. "We never thought something like this could happen to our daughter. She was bright, full of life. We just want justice." Despite Daniel's defense, the jury convicted him of first-degree murder. The sentence was swift life in prison without the possibility of parole. But for Sarah's family, it wasn't enough. Nothing could bring their daughter back. As for the campus, life slowly returned to normal, but the shadow of Sarah's murder lingered. The once bustling university now felt quieter, more cautious. The students who had once walked freely between classes now looked over their shoulders, unsure of who might be watching. Some even left, unable to live with the knowledge that the killer had been one of their own. The campus killer had been caught, but the emotional scars would never heal. Ridgewood University would forever be marked by the tragedy of Sarah Miller. And Daniel Adams, locked away in a cold, lonely cell, would spend the rest of his life reflecting on the twisted delusion that led him to take the life of an innocent woman. In the end, the case of Sarah Miller serves as a chilling reminder of how deeply obsession can run, and how even the most ordinary person can harbor the darkest secrets. The search for answers may have ended with a conviction, but the true horror of what happened on that campus will never fade. Ridgewood University, forever haunted by Sarah's memory, would never be the same again. The question remains, could anyone have seen the warning signs? How well do we really know those around us? As the final gavel struck in Daniel's trial, it marked the end of one chapter, but for those left behind, the haunting question of why would echo forever. The campus killer had been caught, but the terror of his crime would never be forgotten.